Welcome to Out from the Horrorbox, and this is our first redo episode. I'm your red-nosed host, Dom, and this will be the first of my redo episodes. I'll take an older episode topic that I think needs some updating. That may be due to more information on the subject, information I neglected to touch on, or possibly even a sequel comes out and requires a reevaluation of the series. The film that we will be taking another look at is the 1988 American science fiction horror comedy film written, directed, and produced by the Chiodo Brothers, Klowns from Outer Space. Last time we looked at the film, a lot has happened, and there was a major part of its history that I neglected to talk about. So grab some cotton candy, some popcorn, a tub of ice cream, as we take a look at these circus aliens. To start off with, we need to look at the creators of the film and how they came about getting the film produced. The Chiodo Brothers, Stephen, Charles, and Edward, were born in the Bronx and raised in Deer Park, New York. The trio are sibling special effects artists, specializing in clay modeling, creature creation, stop motion, and animatronics. They have worked on multiple film projects such as Critters, Ernest Scared Stupid, and Team America World Police. They also created the claymation sequence for the Large Marge scene from Pee-wee's Big Adventure and the stop-motion elements in the North Pole scene from Elf. Stating in an interview, their interest in special effects all started with Monsters and the $1 Million Movie on New York's WOR TV. Stephen Chiodo said Godzilla, King Kong, It, The Terror from Beyond Space, and The Thing, and we were all bitten by the monster bug. This monster obsession led the brothers to start making mini monster movies with their Super 8. The Chiodo said that they got their first feature film, a lot of shorts, and a lot of other small things. They had a demo reel that was the segue to get them into filmmaking that led to an ABC TV after-school special, and they came up with the idea for Killer Klowns from Outer Space, and pitched the idea to Transworld Entertainment. That they got that through a friend, and Transworld bought the film right out of the gate. So now let's get into Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
It was a night like any other night. Then something happened.
You see that?
Something different.
It's no shooting star.
Why here? Why now? Why clowns? They've been knocking them dead all over the universe.
What are you gonna do? Knock my block off?
Soon they'll be doing it at a theater near you.
Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
Maybe they're just cruising through the galaxy and stopped here for a bite to eat.
You don't need a police pal, you need a psychiatrist. They want to play games? They're messing with the wrong guy.
What are you in for?
Killer Klowns from Outer Space. It's crazy.
Just outside the town of Crescent Cove, Mike Tobacco and his girlfriend Debbie Stone, they are played by Grant Kramer and Suzanne Snyder, respectfully, are parked with other couples at the local Lover's Lane. Everyone is interrupted by an ice cream truck driven by two of Mike's friends, Rich and Paul Terenzi. They are played by Michael S. Siegel and Peter Lacassie, respectively. They are accosted and driven away by the couples. Mike explains to Debbie that they are constantly getting themselves into schemes. Mike and Debbie settle into the back of his car when they spot a strange glowing object falling to Earth. A nearby farmer, Gene Green, played by Royal Dano, sees the strange glowing object. He believes it to be Halley's Comet and ventures into the woods with his dog named Pooh Bear to find the impact site. He stumbles upon a large circus tent-like structure. His dog is captured by an unknown shadow. Green starts to look for his dog and tries to tear down the tent, but is zapped when he touches one of the purple wires holding up the tent. A mysterious clown-like alien known as Klowns appear and shoots a pink ray from a whirling, colorful gun. Mike and Debbie arrive to investigate for themselves. They come across the tent, enter and discover a complex interior with bizarre rooms, and eventually realize it is the object they were chasing, and that is also a spaceship. They stumble across a room with hanging cotton candy. Debbie says that this isn't normal, and Mike disagrees, ripping off a piece to find a gelatinized Gene Green. One of the clowns enters, and they hide, but they end up making a noise once they notice their friend encased in cotton candy. They are spotted by the clown, who pursues and fires popcorn at them from a bazooka-like weapon. Mike and Debbie are able to get to their vehicle as a group of clowns, who, using a living dog balloon, arrive, and they are able to drive away from them. Narrowly escaping to the local police station, they report the incident to one of the officers and Debbie's ex-boyfriend, Dave Hansen, played by John Allen Nelson, and his curmudgeonly partner, Curtis Mooney, played by John Vernon. Mooney recognizes Mike as a friend of the Terenzi brothers and says this is a prank by them. Debbie is able to convince Dave to investigate. Dave drives and takes Debbie home. Then Mike takes Dave to the site of the ship, only to find it has disappeared and left a large crater in its place. Dave believes that this is a prank and handcuffs Mike. During this time, the clowns begin encasing townspeople in cocoons using toy-like ray guns. Several clowns perform pranks and mock circus acts, which results in the death of several onlookers. Dave travels to the Lover's Lane, only to find all the cars abandoned and covered in the cotton candy substance. Dave takes the handcuffs off Mike and shows him the substance on the glasses of one of Mike's friends, to which Mike explains that this is the substance they encountered in the spaceship. As Debbie takes off her clothes and takes a shower, the popcorn that was left on her clothes begins to move. At the police station, Mooney starts to ignore incoming calls from citizens about the clowns. The clown appears and Mooney tries to lock it up. He handcuffs it, but walks away, leaving Mooney with fake hands. The clown enters the next room with the jail cell. Mooney enters and the clown regrows its hands. Mooney opens the jail cell, which is holding two punks that Mooney brought in earlier, and forces the clown inside, hitting it with his club. The clown's head twirls around as Mooney shuts the cell door. The clown pulls out a party blower and uses it, unrolling to become a hand, grabbing Mooney by the throat and pulling him into the bars. The clown turns towards the punks. Mike and Dave drive back to town and witness a clown using shadow puppets to shrink a crowd of people, then dump them into a bag full of popcorn, which are revealed to be clowns in larval form. They try to ram it with the car, but the clown jumps straight up, disappearing. They hear a commotion and Mike recognizes the ice cream truck. Dave tells Mike to get the Terenzis to help warn the town. Mike catches up to the Terenzis and entices them to drive to Debbie's by saying she has two roommates. Dave drives back to the police station to find the place ransacked. He explores the dimly lit station and finds the punks, now encased in the cotton candy cocoon. Dave goes to use the phone and discovers the clown using a deceased Mooney as a ventriloquist dummy. The clown explains through Mooney that they just want to kill the humans. It lets go of Mooney and starts advancing towards Dave. Dave shoots the alien in the torso, but that has no effect. Steadying himself, Dave shoots the clown in the nose, which causes it to spin wildly and explode. Dave is then able to call the state police and request help. Mike, Rich, and Paul use the loudspeaker on the ice cream truck to attempt warning people of the clowns. They come across a part of town that has been completely taken over by the clowns. Finally convinced, the Terenzies turn around and head for Debbie's house. Back at Debbie's house, the popcorn has evolved into juvenile clowns and attack her. She attempts to escape, but is intercepted by 5 of the clowns, who trap her into a giant balloon. Mike and the Terenzies witness Debbie's capture and give chase. Dave sees them giving chase and begins to pursue them. They all follow the clowns to the local amusement park, where they have relocated their ship. Journeying through a fun house, the Terenzi brothers become separated. After Dave and Mike witness a clown using a drinking straw to drink one of the gelatinized town people's blood, they rescue Debbie and flee into a maze full of traps. The trio then finds themselves surrounded by a legion of clowns. The Terenzis arrive in their ice cream truck and use the PA to distract the aliens. A gargantuan clown puppet, Jojo the Clownzilla, appears and destroys the ice cream truck, seemingly killing the Terenzis. Dave creates a distraction and Mike and Debbie escape before the ship begins to take off. Dave uses his badge to pierce Jojo's nose, causing him to explode and destroy the ship. The clown car drops out of the sky and Dave emerges along with the Terenzi brothers, who miraculously survived by hiding in the ice cream truck's freezer moments before it was destroyed. As the group watches the fireworks created by the ship's destruction, pies fall from the sky and land on their faces. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of the trivia behind the film. The scene where a clown rams a car off the road and kills the driver was originally intended to be an opening prologue to the film, and the driver was to be the character of Joe Lombardo. For this prologue, there was also a scene shot where Joe and his date are kissing on a deserted dark road, and after his date rejects him, he angrily drives off alone, only to meet his demise with the clown. However, when it was decided to have an opening credit sequence to be seen first, the kissing rejection scene ended on the cutting room floor, and the car crash scene was placed in a later point in the film with the driver not being Joe Lombardo. He ended up being the name of a dead person that Mike and Debbie discover wrapped up in cotton candy in the final version. And it's kind of crazy too, like the behind the scenes of that. I watched the behind the scenes of like them because there's this guy on YouTube. I forgot his name, but he goes to like different places where like horror films have been shot, and he went around in California, Southern California, where they shot this. Or was it in Southern California? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like Southern California. And he went to the spot that this was, and the turn an area that they had to go off of, like there wasn't much room for it, and that's why it doesn't like create like such a great like car like going off the road and turning over, and like there was a sandbag, I guess, when like stuck under the car when it was supposed to go, and it's this whole thing, and like it like kind of sucked because it kind of does ruin like what is supposed to be like this cool like awesome like car destruction scene. But in the film, it works pretty well for what you see. I mean, it makes sense and everything. And you can, I love when he went to these places because you just get a real sense of like, oh, how they shot this and where they shot everything. And it's just pretty cool. Go check it out online. I might link it in the description. But it's pretty cool. Like they just go to different places and it just shows you like, oh, here's where they shot, like the scene at the end with the big top taking off, but like it just gives you a sense of like, oh, perspective of where everything was and where everything is. The movie originally ended with the Terenzi brothers as the survivors of the exploding spaceship, while Dave perished after killing the giant clown. But since the executives needed an upbeat ending, the Chiodo Brothers filmed a second ending that is in all versions where Dave and the Terenzi brothers survive the exploding spaceship by hiding in the clown car. I guess having a more upbeat ending is a little bit better than just kind of having such a downer where, like, even if the Terenzi brothers like didn't survive, like, dang, that's like half of the main cast, or over half of the main cast, like, just being killed off. But like having them survive and even Dave like not surviving either, you know, that still would be kind of a letdown, because like they go through all that and he sacrifices himself, which would have been, I guess, more of an interesting and more like deeper ending. Like, dang, he sacrificed himself to let us survive. But you know, you get to see everybody happy, and then I think they did like something great to kind of subvert that a little bit, with the pies coming down, hitting them in the face. So it's like, yeah, sure, you guys all got to survive, but it's like maybe they did too. So I guess it kind of works out a little bit easy, like, or a little bit for both. Soupy Sales was originally considered for the part of the security guard killed by the clown's acidic pies. He was known for receiving pies in the face on his children's television show, Lunch with Soupy Sales. Transworld Entertainment turned down the idea of having him come in to fill that part, feeling that audiences would not know who Sales was, which is kind of what I felt before I knew who he was either. I had to look him up, not now, obviously. I looked him up a while ago when I first learned about that. And yeah, I, like, even for the 80s, like in 88, like, it would have been like, who? Because he's someone from, like, I think, like the 60s, maybe 50s, somewhere. He's from like a while back, even for the 80s. So like people, even if you were to watch it, like, let's just say in like the early 2000s, you would be just as clueless as the people in the 80s as to like why the, like, what like, is that supposed to be like a joke? Like, oh, it's a meta joke. It's like, but why? It's because, like, oh, this guy, he used to do that, like, take pies to the face in his TV show from a long time. I think it would kind of be like if in like it, in like the adaptation of it, like they brought up, well, no, I would say the more recent adaptation of it, if they brought up like Bozo the Clown. Yes, Bozo's a little bit more known. But I think they actually, you know what, Stephen King brings up in the novel, how like the kids in the town of Derry in the 80s, they compare Pennywise to Ronald McDonald, but the kids in the 50s compare it to like Bozo the Clown, because the thing is, like, kids later in the 80s wouldn't know who Bozo is. I mean, they would know only because their parents might have told them. But like, even like further, like now, like with the adaptation of it, the more recent one where it's set, the kids are set in the 80s and the adults in the like relative future of now. That was years ago, whatever. But if they had said like Bozo the Clown, they would have been like, who are you talking about? What is that? What's Bozo the Clown? And I mean, it's, yeah, like, it's, yeah, it may have had like a cultural impact for these groups of kids and they'd understand it and you could have written it for them, but like by the time that comes out, it just wouldn't make sense. I think I got the point across that, like, it just wouldn't be relevant to like have that like meta joke in there, because nobody younger than like 30 old, or maybe like even 40, 50 would understand the joke. The iconic Killer Klowns March was originally written by John Massari for his high school rock band Crisis. The band members did not like it because the notes of the song spelled out an F major 7th chord, which they felt sounded too much like jazz. And honestly, now that I read that and I thought about it a little bit more, I was like, I guess I could see where they could kind of get that kind of jazzy feel from, but it still doesn't really. He probably did adjust it for this, but that's kind of crazy though. That he rewrote it that long ago for a band or for his rock band, and that's kind of crazy. And then he just repurposed it for this. That's pretty. Honestly, I like that. I think that's kind of cool where you're able to take an idea you had from years ago and repurpose it for something years later. And in another example of taking something that you'd done earlier and bringing it back and repurposing it. So John Massari's music for the entrance of Clownzilla, Jojo, the big clown at the end, was originally composed a year earlier for the Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives movie trailer. So Massari's music for that trailer was rejected in favor of a more cliche musical approach. And hearing that, I'm like, what? Why wouldn't you have gone with something like that? Like, why would you want something more? I get it, because it's just another Friday the 13th, and you just want to keep pumping them out or whatever, but I feel like you could have given it something like that. Even for a movie trailer, like, just to have some kind of unique music like that, I think it would make it stick out and, like, be what, like, people would remember it for. But, I mean, then now, like, we got it used in Killer Klowns, and especially for that, like, entrance scene, like the big clown like that, that part always, like, it didn't scare me, but it was like enough to know, like, oh man, now they're dealing with the big boss. You know, it feels like that part in a game when you're cornered and you're like, oh man, how am I gonna deal with this? And then, oh man, now it becomes the big boss coming out to fight. I feel like John Massari just, like, wrote a bunch of music or composed a bunch of stuff, and that, like, he's just never had the time to shine, like, and then finally, like, Killer Klowns comes around and they get him to do, like, the more orchestral music for the film, and he's like, yeah, let me just use some stuff that I already came up with, and it worked perfectly well. Staying on track with music. So the title song, Killer Klowns, was written and performed by the American punk rock band The Dickies and was released on their album Killer Klowns from Outer Space in 1988. Frontman Leonard Phillips wrote the song without seeing the movie. You can kind of tell that from the song because it's just kind of taking, like, this kind of generic approach to, like, Killer Klowns. They kind of reference, like, the outer space part a little bit in it, but it's more like, oh, here's this, here's that, and it kind of makes sense to the movie, but then when you think about it, it's like, that there's no ringmaster, there's no this, there's no that, like, just sounds like they're pulling just generic stuff about clowns and circuses and whatever, sideshows, and they're, like, trying to put that into the song to make it fit, and that's kind of what they did because, like I said, the movie wasn't even done when they were writing the song. I think they wrote the song when they just gave them the title Killer Klowns from Outer Space, and they wrote the song and they gave it to them, and then they like they were in the middle of production, and then they used it, and then later, because the music video is pretty funny. It's like them with, like, the killer clowns, and you can tell, like, from just paying attention to what the lyrics are and what the film has, that like they didn't know what they were going to be exactly writing the song about, and, like, to come up with, like, more things. But you know what, it has a great opening. You know, it's like that ha, 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 like laughter, ha ha ha, like kind of quiet, ha ha, and then it, like, ramps up into that you know what I mean, like they took that like old like circusy type music and just turned it into more like an electric guitar, you know, or whatever, punk, like, and they just turned it into an awesome punk rock song, and I love it. It's always, like, the best to hear. And I can't believe that when I first did this review for Killer Klowns, I left that out completely. I left out talking about the song and how it's. I remember, getting that EP and listening to it, and then, well, I watched the movie first. I didn't really understand that it was a rock band like the Dickies that did. Punk band like the Dickies that did it until like years later, and then I found out, and I was like, what? And I went and got it, and I was like, what? This is crazy. Like, there's not that many songs on it, right? Because it's just an EP. It's not a like full-length album, but still, the fact that it's got the song Killer Klowns from Outer Space on it makes it, amazing. So back in 2018, Klowns, as well as the infamous ice cream truck from the film, were featured in a Killer Klowns from Outer Space themed scare zone at Universal Orlando's 28th annual Halloween Horror Nights event. On July 25th, 2019, it was announced that the Killer Klowns from Outer Space scare zone of the previous year would be expanded into a full-fledged haunted house attraction for the 2019 event at both the Orlando and Hollywood locations. Later in August, it was revealed that exclusive Killer Klowns from Outer Space merchandise would be sold during Halloween Horror Nights. The haunted house later returned for the 2022 edition of Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios, and I am so mad I didn't get to go to either one. And I am like kicking myself because I didn't get to go to either one. It's like frustrated me, and it's made me so mad over the few years, especially because I watch videos and I see people, and my mom got to go. Because one year, when it first started in 2019, why did I go? I forgot why. I think I had to. I don't think I could get out of like working or something, and then the next year, I know what it was. I didn't have enough money to go because I had just quit my job, and so I just didn't have the money to go. So then later, when they brought it back in 2022, I really wanted to go, but I couldn't make it out there. Kind of the same thing happened. That's when I got laid off from my when they laid everyone off at Peloton. And I wasn't able to go again, and I really wish they had brought it back this year because I would have been able to go. I would have finally been able to go, and they didn't bring it back. I was so mad. I was like, you serious? You brought it back? Or you had it for 2 years, and you couldn't even bring it back once. Like, once again. Like, ridiculous. My mom did buy me some stuff from there, though, so I got some of the merchandise, but I'm still like kicking myself because that would have been so amazing to go through a Killer Klowns themed haunted house. Ridiculous. Makes me mad. In 2021, Spirit Halloween dedicated a section of its seasonal stores to merchandise tied to the movie. In addition to costumes, statues, props, doormats, signage, and life-size animatronics, characters were featured, as well as selling exclusive Funko Pop. The first one that they started with was a blacklight version of one of the first clown we see, who's like in the purple. His name is, fans call him Jumbo. And I have the regular Pops, except for one that was a con exclusive, and he's very expensive and hard to find. Slim, he's the one who does the shadow puppets and puts the like popcorn in the bag. I had just got a Bippo, and then the one where Bippo and Shorty he's popping out of the pizza boxes, and they're cotton candy cocooing the woman. I have that as well. I want to get the other blacklight Funko Pops because the Funko has started really going hard into like branching out into like a lot of different things, and they've started to give us more and more, finally, like Killer Clown stuff. GameStop has an exclusive box that like comes with, I think it's like 4 blacklight versions of like Slim, Shorty, Spiky, and I think another Jumbo, but he's like it's a different version of him. And then I also have the Walmart exclusive, I think it's a Walmart exclusive, whatever. It's Rudy, and he's with like the video VHS DVD like cover art behind him, and I want to get the Fatso. I still got to get that one, the baby clown pop, and then they just announced, and I'm gonna get that one this upcoming week. JoJo Clownzilla. I think he's like a smaller pop, like a regular size pop, but I wish they would have done him like a bigger pop. That would have been so cool. Like that. Like, I don't really like the big jumbo pops that they do. Like, I'm like, I don't know why, like, people, like, buy, like, there's some that make sense to be, like, the bigger sizes or in the bigger boxes. His would have made sense. Like, he makes sense because he's a bigger clown. So, like, if he would have had a big jumbo version of him, it would have made sense towards the other ones. But I don't know why they didn't do that. Whatever. But, yeah, I can't wait for more and more because we're getting more and more merchandise for Killer Klowns, and I mean I've tried to buy as much as I can from Spirit, and there's still more that I have to get, and I love that each year now, since I think like 2001, I think that sounds about right because it's been like two years. Every year they've just been bringing out more and more because it started off kind of slow. It was like a costume here and there, a Funko Pop last year, and then they just started rolling out more and more, and I love it. So last year in August 2022, there was an announcement from TerraVision Games that an asymmetrical multiplayer game based on the film was being developed and to be published by Good Shepherd Entertainment. They had a planned release for sometime in 2023, and I remember like that you could sign up for like the beta and everything, and like you could sign up for like the like mailing and get more information, like email for it. And I did all that. They planned for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series XS, and it was gonna come out. They said it was sometime 2023. 2023 comes around in the beginning of the year, and I knew it wouldn't come out for maybe a little bit into 2023, but then there was like hardly, like we got maybe a couple of like updates here and there in 2023, the beginning of this year, but then it just kind of stopped and dried up, and everybody was like, oh, the game's canceled, or they got no information on it, or who knows if it's even going to come out anymore now too. Like, what? So then finally, a couple months ago, August 2023, it was announced that IllFonic was brought onto the project to co-develop the game with TerraVision and relieve Good Shepherd from publishing duties. And they said that the new release time would be sometime in 2024. Hopefully next year we do get it. But they did update us with more like footage from the game and more updates from that. So I was like, thank God. At least they're still doing it. I can't wait to play this. I mean, I'm not a huge, like, I don't really like those kind of asymmetrical multiplayer kind of games. I think like, was it Friday the 13th? But I really want to play this really bad. I love Killer Klowns that much. I know it's like a 3v7, I think, and so it's like 3 clowns, and then like the rest of the players are, or is it 7 players altogether, and then it's 4 humans. I don't remember, but the rest of the people are humans, and you get assigned to be a clown, and you're trying to go around capturing people, or you're the people, and you're trying to fight off the clowns and get away from them and stuff. Either way, can't wait to play it. I really want to be the clowns. They just look amazing. It sounds like they're gonna give us new, not just that, but like new clowns. They've already shown that they have like new guns and new devices to use, and there's some new clowns that we get to see. So hopefully there's more and more that we get for it, and hopefully this leads to something, right? And that's a perfect segue to our next topic, because I really want more Killer Klowns, right? And what's the best way than with like talking about a potential sequel, but honestly, let's just get straight into that right now. The Chiodo Brothers have been planning to release a requel, so like a remake / sequel, titled Return of the Killer Klowns from Outer Space in 3D. And they've been talking about this since 2012. Stephen Chiodo was to direct, and Charles was to be the production designer. Grant Kramer, who played Mike Tobacco, was saying that the character would return. And according to Kramer, Tobacco would be a town drunk whose ramblings about the clowns are dismissed. Then the clowns come back, and Tobacco, who is to be preparing for their return, teams up with 2 young street performers to fight them. Kramer also said there might be multiple sequels, each revolving around a character from the original movie. Like this one was Mike, the next one might be like Dave, or it could be Debbie. But I guess that's how the like trilogy would pan out. Like we would see another one of them, and then the clowns, I guess, are invading more and more. And then according to the Facebook page for the film, the release date had been delayed for the requel. It was officially in post-production. I don't know why it would be in post-production when I don't think they shot, I don't think they'd even written anything, and I don't think they got anything together. I think they were still working on that. A page on the website for the original movie promised that the follow-up film, referred to as a sequel rather than a requel, would be released in 2013. That just never happened. In the 2016 interview, Stephen Chiodo said that the efforts to make further Killer Klowns productions had shifted from planning one or more theatrical releases to focusing on like a TV series. He explained that the concept of a trilogy in 4 parts, with the original film being the first, adding we've got it all written out. However, he also ambiguously referred to the same plans as a long arc series for cable and a long-ranging series. So I guess that's kind of what they kind of wanted, but then in October 22nd of 2018, it was announced that the Sci-Fi Channel was in talks to license the rights to make 1 or more sequels to Killer Klowns from Outer Space, as well as additional movies in the Critters franchise. They eventually did make, I think, was it 2 Critters? No, 1 Critters film, Critters Attack, in 2019, and then they made a series, like a web series, not a web series, but I forgot what it was on, but it was like a shorter series. It was not great. I watched it. It was like meh. But the reason why the requel was not put into production was that Sci-Fi didn't want to sufficiently invest in making it, and you can tell that, you know, they wanted more for it, the Chiodo Brothers, because they put a lot of time and effort into like the props and the art direction and the effects and everything. Stephen Chiodo stated there was a deal, MGM controlled the rights, and they went to Sci-Fi. They saw what Critters Attack turned out to be like, but they wanted to do Clowns for like $2 million, and they didn't want to do that. They would do it for $2 million back in the 80s, but they didn't want to do it for now. Even MGM didn't want to do it. They said it was a more valuable property than just signing off for that little money, and he's right. It's just over the years gotten to be bigger and bigger. Like the merchandise too, like for it, like so many people. It's grown such a cult following, and it's gotten bigger than it ever has been. Like you can't just say, "Here's $2 million to make another movie series, whatever you want to do." No, you need to give them way more than that. Like, yeah, like for the 80s, $2 million would have been fine, because back then it didn't really cost that much to make this, you know. But then over time, you know, all that stuff has just become even more costly. And even if you were excluding so much more for like advertising, I would say that you would still need like at least like, I don't know what, like 50 million maybe. I don't think that much. Probably even like 20 million would probably be like perfect to make like at least a decent like sequel where like it gives us enough that we'd want. Like we get to see the clowns again, we get to see like the characters again. Honestly, I would, if I were them, I would give them as much as I would give them like 100 million just to come back. And like I feel like you could make all your money. I don't know if you'd make all of it. I feel like it would still probably, I think it would do just fine in theaters. But then, like, merchandising, I think you could get that money way better. Like, I feel like you could create more, like, Funko Pops. You could create more, like, of these, like, NECA figures that come out. You could do more, like, of the, like, tie-in with Spirit even more. And I feel like you guys would be, like, making a lot more money off of just that. Like, merchandising. More so than just getting it back from, box office numbers. Honestly, I really hope that it's not like dead and done. I love this series. I want to see another sequel, or not another sequel. I want to see a sequel. I want to see what more that the Chiodo Brothers have that we just haven't seen, because I know that they, like they said, they have ideas written down. They've got it all planned out. They know what they want to do. I know that they, like, I follow Charles, and he's constantly showing that he's sketching out clowns and new clown ideas and things like that. Like, he makes, like, little clay models, too, or, like, he makes figures and stuff, whatever. He does a lot of stuff showing, like, that they're still active and ready to go and interested, and I'm waiting for the day when they just finally say, hey, we're going to make another Killer Klowns from outer space. At least something. A TV show, miniseries, a full-length film, whatever. I'm ready to go for a sequel any day. I've been waiting since I first saw it, and I wanted more from this series. Now we jump into the part of the episode where we talk about all the deaths in this film. There are 40 deaths, and I'm including clowns and the dog, which makes this one of the highest death counts in any horror film that I've reviewed so far. So let's go over who and how they perished. So to start off with, we get Pooh Bear and Farmer Gene Green. He gets turned into cotton candy, and we also see that Pooh Bear, if you notice in the scene where they find where Mike and Debbie are first in the area with the cotton candy, that where they see the old man, and there's a smaller cotton candy cocoon that's behind him. That's Pooh Bear. Poor Pooh Bear. Oh, I always got sad with that part, because I always think, not my dog, not my Pooh Bear. And then he's like, I'm going to tear this thing apart with my bare hands. I always remember that part. And then Jumbo comes out of nowhere and cotton candies him. And then we know from when, like I said, from Mike and Debbie, they see Joe Lombardo. That's when they drop the flashlight that he's holding, I think it is, and then the clown notices him. We saw him earlier in the film on the top of the world. That's like the Lover's Lane area that's called, and he's like the one who's like yelling at one of the guys, yelling at the Chiodo Brothers to get out of there. And then moving on from there, there's a guy who's walking through like a park area, and there's like a gazebo. And he walks up, and there's like a cardboard cutout of something, like a circus or whatever. And then these puppets come up, and they do a little dance and show. And like one of them's a boy, and one's a girl, and the boy's trying to kiss the girl, and he's being very, disgusting, trying to, without consent, get a kiss. And then, she comes back with like a gun, kills him. And then the guy's like laughing, but then she turns the gun on him, and then Spiky, which is the name like that fans have given another clown, he comes out of the puppet show area thing and turns him into cotton candy, and that guy's dead. And then the next thing we see is there's two women at a pharmacy who off screen get caught and candied. And then from there we get a montage of a lady who, I don't know if she ordered pizza or they just show up with the pizza boxes. And there's a couple of clowns, and then out pops Shorty out of he's the one, like the small clown, that's the nickname they've given him. And he cotton candies her. And then there's a lady who opens the door, and there's Fatso, and that's the name of another clown who's just kind of chubby and fat. And he gives her some candy, but then he pulls out a gun and cotton candy cocoons her. So that's another person down. Next we see, as part of the same montage, or I think it's just another scene later, whatever, there's a biker gang, and they're just hanging out, doing whatever they do. And, they're on their motorcycles with their girls, and they're just doing whatever, hanging out. And then out of nowhere comes Shorty. He's riding a little bike, and one of the biker gang goes up to him and asks if he can ride it. Shorty goes, nah. And then he's like, oh, can I at least beep the horn? And he's like, oh, yeah, or whatever. And then he takes the bike and just demolishes it. And so then Shorty jumps out of nowhere, comes back with some boxing gloves, and then punches and knocks his block off. And then his body just falls and crumbles to the ground. And then next we see Mike and Dave, and they're at the top of the world, and we find out that Bob McReed, one of Mike's friends and Debbie's friends, got turned into cotton candy. His car's full of it. They have his glasses, but that's about it. We don't really see, so that's off screen. And then another off screen is Mr. Myers. We hear him over the phone when Mooney's talking to him. And he's like, Mr. Myers, not you too. And so we hear him get over the phone, get cotton candied. Then there's another guy. He's driving a car, and that's when Slim pulls up next to him in an invisible car and rams him off the road, and he dies in a car crash, and bam, dead. And then from there we see some big talk burger guy, one of the employees. He's taking out the trash and he throws in the garbage can, but he hears a noise, so he goes to investigate, and that's when something in there grabs him and kills him. We never see what it is, so we have to assume, because we saw a scene earlier with Jumbo and he put some popcorn in there, so maybe it's more of the larval clowns that we had seen at Debbie's house. Maybe a bunch of them were in there and they just ate them. There are 5 people at the bus stop that Slim comes out and he does a puppet show, and then he turns it into a T-Rex, and he uses it to eat them and turn them into popcorn, and he puts it in his bag, and that's when he jumps away. The next person we see who is killed, it's Officer Mooney. He gets his head slammed against the cell, and then he gets turned into a puppet, and so from there he's just like a shell, and he's used to talk through by Jumbo, and then he gets killed. And then we also see that when Dave goes to investigate in the jail cell, there's 2 cotton candy cocoons on the wall, and that's the 2 punks that were in the jail cell from earlier. And then he encounters Jumbo, who has Officer Mooney as a ventriloquist, and he tells him we just want to kill you, Dave, or whatever he says. Then he throws him away, and he starts moving the desk to try and come after Dave. And then Dave shoots him in the nose, and he dies. Explodes in a green flurry. And then from there, we turn to when the Terenzi brothers and Mike are trying to warn the town about the clowns, and they turn down a road, and that's when there's a whole parade of clowns going down the road, cotton candying people, throwing them out of the houses and windows. They have this big old machine that's just sucking them up. And there's one guy who's hidden under, and there's a whole host of them, and there's about 15 of them, but one of them, he's still alive, and he is hiding under a car, and as the clowns pass, he gets out from under the car. He starts running away, but then one of the clowns notices, turns around, and bam, cotton candies him. The next victim of the clowns is The security officer who's at the amusement park when the clowns show up after getting Debbie. There's like 5 of them. I think it's Rudy, Spiky, I know Bibbo, Slim, and Shorty. Yeah, that's who's all there. And then they throw pies at him, but it turns out the pies are acidic, and it melts him down to the bone. And that's when that Mike, Dave, the Trenzy brothers show up, and they're like, "Ooh, ice cream, like a melted wad of ice cream." And like, "Oh, that's not ice cream." And you see his bones, like his hand, like with the flashlight, or like the skeletal hand with the flashlight, and it's like, "Ooh, you don't want to eat that." And then from now on, the last couple ones are just a couple of clowns. So there's a clown that gets shot in the nose by Dave and explodes. Fatso the clown gets shot in the nose by Dave. And then Jojo, the Clownzilla, that comes down at the end, a big Clownzilla, and he's all, "Roar," and like he bashes the truck and throws it out of the way, and then he goes after Debbie and Mike, but then Dave distracts him, and they're able to get out, and then he grabs him, and then using his badge, he smashes his nose, and he turns and drops him, and he twirls in place, and he twirls, and boom, his explosion causes the whole tent to explode and into a flurry, and that's when the police are there, and they're with Mike and Debbie, and they see the clown car crash, and then we get the end. And after all that, it's just a bunch of dead people, because they all were in there, right? Even if there was more people in, like those other cocoons and other balloons and other clowns, they're all dead. So it could be any number of people that are just dead. And that's why it's one of the highest kill counts on here, kill counter and death counts or whatever. So this movie, as a kid, you don't realize that. But as you grow up and you watch it again, you're like, man, there's a lot of dead people in here. A lot of deaths. And so let's move on to my final thoughts from the film. Killer Klowns from Outer Space has been a movie that has been in my life for a very, very long time. I mean, it came out 2 years before I was born. And I remember it was on the Sci-Fi channel many, many, many years ago. I want to say maybe when I was like 5 or 6, maybe. I don't know if I was that old or that young, I guess. And I remember, I think I saw a promo for it, like, it's going to be on the Sci-Fi channel. And I was like, oh, yeah, I really want to see this because this looks ridiculous and it looks cool. And I loved horror movies. I've always loved horror movies since I was a little kid. And I remember getting home, and I know I told my mom that I wanted to see it. And I think I fell asleep. But she did one thing for me. And it was like one of the greatest things that she could ever do, is she recorded it on a VHS, and I watched it later, and I watched it constantly. That would be one of the movies I constantly played that we had recorded, and I loved it. It was just always like in my mind, like, oh, this movie that I thought no one else knew about. And when I got onto the internet, I learned a little bit more about it. You learn here and there, and I remember one of the first DVDs I ever bought was Killer Klowns from Outer Space, because I wanted a cleaner version of it than just an old VHS. And I remember then, I think they had a scene in the VHS that was a deleted scene that I always thought was part of the movie, but then learned that, like, it's not, like, that's just a deleted scene that they put in there. Anyways, fast forward more years, and oh yeah, people have heard about it here and there, and more people have heard about it, and you find out there's a whole like audience of people that this is a cult movie, and a lot of people have heard about it and seen it, and like they love it too. And then now we're getting closer and closer to nowadays, and you start hearing people who this has influenced them and what they do nowadays and like what they did. And now we got a whole bunch of like merchandise. We've gotten like even they even say it every once in a while. They'll say that they're going to work on a sequel, and everybody gets like, yeah, and the internet blows up because it's like Killer Klowns Part 2 or whatever. There's a game. The game was announced, and oh my god, like the amount of people that are like going crazy and nuts over this game. And then the Halloween Horror Nights, and then like the Funko and stuff at Spirit, and it's just grown over time, and it's just gone from this like cult classic to this huge phenomenon. And look at, I love Killer Klowns from Outer Space. It's one of my favorite films, one of my favorite horror films, one of my favorite films just in general of all time. I have a Blu-ray copy that came with a poster. I put the poster up. I love this. God, I love this movie so much. It's just so ridiculous. It's so over the top. It's so cheesy B-movie, but it's like it knows that it's a B-movie. It knows it's supposed to be funny. It knows it's supposed to be over the top. The story is just generic, like it's more like The Blob than anything else. It's kind of like that callback to those old B-movies of the 50s, and I love it for that because it doesn't do it like with malice. It doesn't do it to try and be like, haha, look at these movies. These movies were dumb. These movies were ridiculous. It does it to show like these movies were good. These movies have merit. Look at what you can do on a with this kind of budget. If you put it into the right places, you can create designs. You can create these creatures that, and like I told my friend, like if you saw this thing in real life, if you saw a clown in real life, and I always use this as an example, like if you really saw one of these things, like the way that they designed them and they came up with like the creature creation of them, and because I watched like the behind the scenes too, I love watching all that. And like coming up with like these designs and the way that they walk and the way that they move and everything, like the Chiodo Brothers took time to craft a world where these creatures are real and they feel real, so that when you think about it, like if you saw this in real life, you'd go crazy. You'd go mad. Your mind would not be able to handle it. You'd be like, what is this thing that's just standing in front of me? And like I've always loved that idea of like they're ridiculous and over the top, like they're clowns, but they are creatures that look like clowns. They're not real clowns. Like they're not a clown. They're not just. It's not just paint or whatever. These things just look like clowns, and that's what I always think is like a pretty interesting aspect, because they never really get into like why the clowns are invading and coming here. Like yeah, I think it's just really like what one of the Chiodo Brothers says. They're just stopping on their way, cruising through the galaxy for a bite to eat, right? That's really kind of what it seems like, is that they're just coming here like, oh, these things are food. Let's cotton candy them. And maybe they came by years ago, like thousands of years ago, and like they say, like our idea, our concept of clowns, like come from them, but they're not really clowns. I don't know. I love this movie. I know there's a lot of people who, would write this movie off and say, oh, it's just a dumb B movie. There's nothing really special. The acting can be a little wonky at times. I think, like, Royal Dano does a great job, and John Vernon, he does a great job, as well as Officer Mooney. The acting's fine. The directing, I mean, for a first-time film, I mean, this is the first time they worked on a film, but this is the first time, directing, producing, writing it, getting everything together. They do a pretty okay job, for their first film. But it's the special effects that knock it out of the park. The fact that they built a popcorn gun that really works. It shot popcorn out of it. Just the effects of the clowns. Just the sets and everything just look great. it just adds to the ambiance and that aesthetic of like the clowns and everything, and just gives you a sense of like real, like if these things were real, like this is what they look like. It looks lived. So overall, I know there's some people, it's kind of mixed. Some people will say it's a terrible movie. Some people will say it's a good movie. I think it's a great movie. I think for what it is, for being a callback to those old classic B movies, it knocks it out of the park. It's a fun ride. It's fun. And I can see how maybe if you're younger, it could be a little bit scary, especially if you have chlorophobia. You're afraid of clowns. This movie is not for you. Like, my younger brother hates this movie. He hates everything about killer clowns because he's just afraid of clowns. So I guess for you, if you're afraid of clowns, this is going to be a scary movie. Especially the way that they make him look in this movie. Like I said, the effects on just like the creature creation just looks amazing. I think that's what sets it apart too. But yeah, this is overall just a fun ride. From beginning to end. I mean, there are kind of some slower parts, but that is because it's a movie from the 80s. It's not like going to be jazzed up and ready to go like some more newer films try and get things rolling. There's going to be some slower parts, but overall, it's a great film. It's a great horror film. I consider it to be a classic. It's going to be one of my favorites for all time, and I love this film. It gets 100 thumbs up, 100 clowns thumbs up, I guess. And yeah, there's just so much I could just gush about this film. I love it. It's also like, I guess maybe like the nostalgia. I can see the flaws though too, but overall though, it's still a great film. So, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a cult classic, one of my favorite horror films. I can't wait for the game to release so I can play it and be a clown. I can't wait to get more Funko Pops. I just can't wait for more merchandise. Hopefully they bring back Halloween Horror Nights, the haunted house there that's themed Killer Clowns. Hopefully we get just more, a sequel maybe, just something. And what did you think of the film? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Tell me why I'm wrong on any of our socials, Instagram, Thread, TikTok. You can find us on any of those platforms. And please, if you like what you hear, subscribe to get new episodes downloaded. Do you have any strange, mysterious, or unexplained stories? Are they true? Did you craft a story yourself? We would love to read your stories, and you can email them to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. We'd also like to post those stories on our socials, on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok, like I mentioned, at horrorboxpodcast, where we also have updates and news. One last thing, if you like the podcast and would like to support the podcast, you can buy me a coffee. You can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It would really help out. We'll see you next time and hear what comes out from the horror box.